Well, thanks, Mike. It's great seeing everybody again. It's been a few years since we've been in person. It's nice seeing people in 3 dimensions. I see a lot of familiar faces. It's just great to be back. And thank you, Mike and ALN for inviting us back again this year. So anybody know, this is the biggest dam in the United States. Does anybody know the name of it? Yep, good. Grand Coulee Dam. That's great. Eastern Washington. Not many people get that right. But it is the largest dam in the country. It was one of the largest dams in the world up until Three Gorges Dam was built in China just recently. We still do have the largest hydro generating units in the world at this dam here. Nobody's beaten us on that yet. But magnificent facility. If you ever get a chance, you're out in Eastern Washington. It's kind of hard to get to. It's about an hour west of Spokane. They offer free tours. It's a marvel. So today I'm going to be talking about, this is my agenda here, just a background on the Bureau of Reclamation. A lot of people have never heard of us before. And then talk about our asset management journey and how we've matured over the last decade or so, and then how we've used visualization. We've really worked on our data. Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see the microphone. Oh, sorry. That better? Oh, sorry. Oh. And talking about data and how we represent data, we're getting all this great data from our from implementing asset management across the Bureau. And then how are we displaying that for folks so they can easily digest it and make decisions from it? And then talk about next steps in our journey. So just a few facts about the Bureau of Reclamation. We have just about 500 dams in our inventory. Our dams, I would consider them all A's and B's. I don't see any D's in our inventory. We have about 330 reservoirs. We're the second largest producer of hydropower in the country with 77 hydropower plants. And we do have a lot of recreation areas and wildlife areas as well. We have over 10,000 miles of mainland canals. And that's actually an interesting fact. We've been reporting 8,000 miles for decades. And we underwent an asset registry project, really trying to understand what do we own and where it's located. And we've increased our the number of miles of canals almost by 25%. The asset registry. Oh, we're in the middle of it. We're year 2 of 4 right now. It's been absolutely. I can talk about that for hours. That's been absolutely incredibly beneficial for the agency, just documenting what we own and where it is. And then we have about 8 million acres of land across the Western United States. Again, we're the largest wholesale supplier of water in the United States, second largest hydropower producer, second to the Army Corps of Engineers. And we do have a recreation component. We support over 500,000 jobs, but recreation actually produced more power for the economy, or more money for the economy than hydropower last year. This is our footprint. So we're based solely in the Western United States. We have a really small footprint here in DC. So I'm heading after this talk to meet with a few leaders over in Main Interior building. But our headquarters are moved out to Denver, Colorado back in the 1990s. So I work for headquarters and I work in Denver as opposed to Washington, DC. I love this visual. This really represents everything we do as an agency. We have this poster, we've placed it all over our building in Denver, just so that people know that everybody plays a role in asset management across the agency. So this is everything we do as an agency and all the benefits that we deliver. But this has been a really impactful visual that we've been using recently. So here's our journey. I feel like we've always been a strong asset management agency since we were originally founded in the early 1900s. I think we always had that in the back of our minds that we're going to build these big dams, these big plumbing networks throughout the Western United States, and they were going to be resilient and last into perpetuity. But in 2015, we released what we call our infrastructure investment strategy. I think ISO 55000 came out 2014, 15, around that time frame. And we took notice and we tried our best to align, at least take our first stab at it. So in this infrastructure investment strategy, we really want to document our repair needs, going out as far as we possibly could. And we developed this program called MR&R, or Major Rehabilitation and Replacement. And that included 3 different buckets of activities we were undertaking. The first is extraordinary maintenance. These are big capital improvement projects. And we set a threshold of $100,000. So we wanted to capture the bigger projects, not the smaller ones. We take safety of our dams very seriously. At the Bureau of Reclamation, we have 360 dams that fall within this program. If we find a deficiency in our dams, they're automatically included in MR&R, and we address those issues. And then also deferred maintenance. That's something we track, and we have a $0 threshold in deferred maintenance, but that's also included in MR&R. Through this infrastructure investment strategy, we really try to get a relative level of importance of these activities we're undertaking. So this is a pretty simple way of looking at projects and taking risk and benefit and combining them to determine the relative importance. So what we do is we use risk. So that's the probability of failure, and that's based upon the condition assessments we do in the field. And then what happens if the asset fails? That's the consequence of failure. The product of those two equals risk. Then the other part of the equation is benefits. So that's the return on the investment for any activity we're undertaking, as well as the enhancement of reclamation's mission. We combine risk and benefits, and it falls into one of these 5 buckets. A being a project that we're undertaking that's addressing a high risk issue, that's also returning a lot of benefits for the American public and the agency. E is on the other side of the spectrum, an activity that is not returning on the investment as much as an A project, and maybe not addressing a high risk asset. The second step, this was a law passed by Congress in 2009 called the Bureau of Reclamation Transparency Act, Public Law 116.9. This required Reclamation to produce an asset management plan and deliver that to Congress every 2 years, starting in 2021. And that included a list of all of our repair needs across the agency. So our MR&R that we had started collecting that information back in 2015, the appropriations needed for each of those activities. So a lot of our activities are funded by others, by stakeholders. We have irrigation districts, water users, hydropower beneficiaries. They all contribute money of their own. So Congress really wanted to understand what are we on the hook for each of these activities, and then that categorical rating. So we were able to use the MR&R categorical rating A through E to check that box. So we were set up. We were in a really good place. We did have to go out to the field and collect better data. We knew there were a lot of activities that we didn't have cataloged. So it's been an ongoing effort. I think we're in a really good place now. This first report we did a pretty good job with. We have another report due in March of this coming year. And I think the level of repairs and activities are going to be more comprehensive than they were in 2021. So this is the report we supplied to Congress. We originally started out with like an engineering style report. It was just a huge long spreadsheet we're going to provide to Congress. Instead of doing that, we decided let's make something a little flashier and shorter. So this is what our report looked like. That's the front page. There's a back page to it. It's a single piece of paper. Congress didn't tell us exactly what it should look like. So they gave us the flexibility. And this was incredibly successful for us. People actually read it. It's only 2 pages, has some really cool charts in it, some diagrams, colors. It was just something folks could read, and it was easily digestible, but it contained all the information that Congress mandated that it contained. On the back end of this, we had all the hard data. So you can go on our website. I've got the address at the end of the presentation, and you can see this report, the 2-page report, as well as this appendix. And this appendix is that engineering report. It's basically a gigantic spreadsheet that shows all the repair needs for all the activities that we identified. But I don't think folks really read this report as much as that 2-pager. And then the third was our SAMP. So this is our first strategic asset management plan. We released this in April of 2020. It was a really good product. It was the first step. We were really struggling with getting our first SAMP out the door. Perfection's the enemy of good, and we just felt like we needed to get something good out there on the table. So that was our first SAMP. It's also available on our website. We have another iteration that's going to be much more improved coming out in the next year or 2. So fast forward, this is actually a wrong date in here. It's November of 21. Bipartisan infrastructure law has been talked a lot about today. This was a huge success for us, and I put a lot of that on the asset management report we supplied to Congress. In this document, they gave us $3.2 billion. $3 billion of that is exactly the number that we had in our asset management report to Congress. It was $3 billion. They read it and they matched the number and provided that to us through the bill. So that covers our forecasted repair needs over the next 5 years. So it was just great. It was great seeing that Congress was reading something that we actually provided them and then did something about it. So this is great. You know, they've got the information, the data behind it. These are good projects we should be investing in. A huge win for us. And again, they matched the wording in the bill for the Bureau of Reclamation matched a lot of what was in our asset management report to Congress. So just a quick timeline of where we are right now. So again, the bill passed in November. We were statutorily mandated to have a selection announcement out by May. So they gave us 6 months to do that, to develop pretty much a brand new program, solicit projects and applications for this new aging infrastructure account, and then make an award. And I think we were able to turn this around so quickly because we had that categorization data already, and we knew the projects that were high risk, that had a huge benefit, the A projects, the B projects, the C projects, let's fund those first, and the D's and the E's can wait. They can be a lower priority. So we were in a great place going into this because of asset management practices. So this is where we are right now. We just finished collecting some of the data, all the data for the next MRR report or the asset management report to Congress. And I'll show you some of those numbers in a few slides here. And the second application process for that $3 billion closes or opens up in October, and that closes in early 2023. And then in March this year, like I mentioned, we have our second report due to Congress, and the numbers have grown quite a bit since our last report to Congress. So now I'm going to talk about how we're collecting all this data. And this is really important. Something really close to my heart is we had a lot of databases, a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of access databases that they were okay. They served a purpose at one time, but it was like people were entering data into 7 or 8 different databases that weren't talking to each other. So we've been really trying to focus on just one database or 2 databases moving forward. And this is what we developed. This has been a huge win for us. We're calling this our CERN database, or capital improvements and repair needs. We've been making a lot of improvements, working closely with the field to see what they want out of the database. They're giving us the data. We want to make sure we can give them data back to them the way that they want to see it. So we've made lots of improvements. We're continually improving it. This is the landing screen. Again, we're trying to make it really easy on the field. We don't enter data here, the field does. So we want to make it as easy as possible for them to enter data so we can then consume it, digest it, and give it back to them or report up to leadership or to Congress. Some examples, just pushing a button. We have the data in there. We can produce these amazing reports. A lot going on in this one report right here. It shows all of our repair needs over the next 30 years. The number we reported to Congress 2 years ago was $12 billion. We're over 20 billion. This has not been quality controlled yet. These are all draft numbers, but I think that's going to stick moving forward. So we've done a great job over COVID, really trying to get better data put into one single system, and it's proven itself. There's a heat map on here that shows all the needs across the agency based upon regions. So you can see down in California, there's some really big needs right now, and you've been reading about that likely in the news. You see the categorization, so that pie chart at the bottom, A's 5%, B's 10%. That's right where we want to be. We don't want a lot of those projects. If we do have those projects, we want to tackle them as soon as possible. And then somebody was talking about real property data. So on the right here, that's our federal real property profile. So that, again, we can spit the data out to serve any purpose. It's been great for reporting up to OMB and to the Department of Interior. When they need data from us, we can just push a button versus going out to the field for a data call. We have it. Just another way of showing the data, exact same database. This is showing our repair needs over the next 30 years. Based upon appropriations, which is Congress obviously wants to see, but that's small. That's that green on each bar. There's a lot of other stakeholders that require, that have to chip in funding for these projects. So we want to capture that as well, including water users, irrigation districts, and hydropower users. Just another way to show the data. We've also been part of this enterprise asset registry project we undertook, where we're mapping all of our assets in GIS. now we can overlay our repair needs on that same GIS database and show the entire Western United States and essentially how it's plumbed and put our repair needs on top of it. Again, we can just show the data to anybody the way that they want to see it. It's really proven beneficial for us. This is showing, again, our dashboard. It's showing deferred maintenance, the different categories for MR&R, the number of activities we have in each region, the categorization again, and then all that data summed up by region. Again, just another way to look at it, deferred maintenance. We've been engaging conversations with GAO on deferred maintenance, and they asked us for data, and we could push a button and send it to them immediately versus going out to the field, doing a data call, trying to collect that data and try to report it. We can have that data to anybody that needs it within minutes. So next steps, like I mentioned before, the second application cycle for what we're calling our aging infrastructure funding opens up this fall. We're going to have our second asset management report to Congress in spring of next year. I think it's going to look pretty similar report wise. The data is obviously going to be improved and more comprehensive, but look for that probably the March timeframe. We're going to improve upon our first iteration of our SAMP. Hope to have that out later next year. And then another thing that we're undertaking is a complete overhaul of our computerized maintenance management system. Again, we're trying to get better data coming into us. We're currently using IBM Maximo for that. When we set that up in 1998, originally, we didn't have much governance on it. And now we have 26 different ways of doing business in the field. And it's impossible to roll that up and summarize it at headquarters level. So we're taking a complete step back with our Maximo system and doing a full reset and starting over. That's a huge effort. We're going to put solicitation out on the street for the overhaul later this year. It's going to take about 4 years to complete that. And then training and socialization of asset management principles. That's been incredibly important to us. We've been training staff across the agency, trying to incorporate as many directorates and cross-functional groups as possible. I heard human resources being brought up earlier today. We've brought them in. You just see people's eyes pop when they get it and they get what we're trying to do. They're like, this is great. Why have I never heard of this before? So we continue to train staff on asset management principles. And it's starting to ingrain itself in the agency, which is pretty neat to see. So that was a lot in just a short period of time. But any questions? I think we'll take them maybe later.
While we're transitioning over to David Maroney, Acting Director of Infrastructure at the GAO, we can take a question if anybody. Yes, Amy.
You talked about looking at failure as kind of one of the risks that you're looking at. Are you looking at any other external stressors, like things like the drought that's happening out west in terms of how that might affect your asset, or just the opposite, major rainfall? And are you able to include that in your asset management projections?
That's a great question. Yes. So obviously drought's a risk. If we can't, it's been in the news, it's been on the front page of CNN for months now. Lake Powell, Glen Canyon Dam, that we're almost at Deadpool there. So we are paying a lot of attention to that. We have like a strike team, obviously dealing with the drought issues, but that's unprecedented drought. I don't think anybody, when we were originally designing these features, could have predicted this ever happening, but that is something we look for on the risk side of that equation, on the categorization side.
I was going to ask, being like the water guy, I guess, one of the things, former Colorado Springs Utilities, and we made our asset management decisions when we moved, water rights from the Colorado to the Arkansas and our southern delivery. Do you engage? I mean, so that's that weird kind of intangible asset of water rights, but is so important, especially in the West. Do you, in your programs, do you get involved? And I would assume it's probably more at the state level than the municipality, but does that that's such a hidden aspect of asset management, but so critical from the, do you have that? Can you kind of comment about that sort of aspect of water?
No, great question. So we do, So our program does, we do maintain our water rights database within the asset management program, which is pretty nice. But it is at the state level, the water rights. Every state, as you know, is different in how they treat water rights.